In Part 1, we learned a simple and reliable framework for building Korean sentences. We saw that Korean usually builds the situation first and places the verb at the end of the sentence. When building your own Korean sentences, this is still the recommended pattern because it is clear, natural, and very commonly used. But as you begin listening to native Korean speakers, you may notice something interesting. They don't always say every part of the sentence, and they don't always keep the words in exactly the same order. So, does that mean they're breaking the grammar rules? Not at all. The framework we learned in Part 1 is still the foundation of Korean sentence structure. What's changing isn't the grammar, it's the speaker's choices. When people communicate, they don't simply say everything they know. They decide what information is important, what information the listener already understands, and what they want to emphasize at that moment. In other words, Part 1 introduced a simple framework for building Korean sentences. In today's lesson, we'll learn how Korean speakers naturally shape that sentence during real conversations. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand why Korean conversations often sound shorter than English, why you sometimes hear different word orders, and how speakers choose the version that best matches what they want to communicate. Okay, let's get started. A sentence reflects the speaker's intention. Let's begin with a question. Which of these three sentences is correct? 저는 오늘 학교에 가요. 오늘 학교에 가요. 학교에 가요. The answer is all three. At first, that might seem surprising. In Part 1, we learned to build sentences by putting different pieces together. So, why do some of those pieces suddenly disappear? The answer is that Korean speakers often don't repeat information that the listener can already understand from the conversation. Instead, they naturally include the information that is important in that particular situation. That means speakers constantly make choices. They ask themselves questions like, what information is already understood? What information does my listener need? What do I want to emphasize? Together, the conversation, the shared context, and the speaker's intention influence how much of the sentence is actually spoken. Let's look at each sentence more closely. Our first sentence is 저는 오늘 학교에 가요. This sentence includes both 저는, meaning I, and 오늘, meaning today. Does that mean you always need to say both? Not necessarily. Imagine someone asks, 누가 오늘 학교에 가요? Who is going to school today? A natural answer would be 저는 오늘 학교에 가요. The speaker keeps 저는 because that's the information the listener wants. Now imagine someone asks, 내일 학교에 가요? Are you going to school tomorrow? You might answer with exactly the same sentence. 저는 오늘 학교에 가요. This time, 오늘 is the important part because the speaker wants to contrast today with tomorrow. The sentence hasn't changed grammatically. What changed is the speaker's intention. Now, let's remove 저는 오늘 학교에 가요. Is this still correct? Yes. In this conversation, everyone already knows who is speaking. So there's no need to repeat I. However, the speaker still keeps 오늘 because today is still an important part of the message. Perhaps they're talking about today's schedule, or perhaps they're contrasting today with another day. The speaker chooses to keep the information they want the listener to notice. Now, let's remove 오늘 as well. 학교에 가요. Is this sentence still correct? Yes. Imagine two friends are already talking about today's plans. One asks, 오늘 뭐 해요? What are you doing today? The other simply replies, 학교에 가요. There's no need to repeat today because the question already tells us that the conversation is about today. There's also no need to repeat I because everyone knows who is speaking. The only new information is that the speaker is going to school. So it sounds natural for the speaker to simply say, 학교에 가요. This is one of the biggest differences between English and Korean. Instead of asking, which words can I leave out? Try asking two different questions. What information is already clear from the conversation? What information do I want my listener to pay attention to? Korean speakers naturally make these decisions throughout every conversation. Once you begin thinking this way, everyday Korean becomes much easier to understand. So, we've seen that Korean speakers make choices about what information to include in a sentence. But those choices aren't possible without something else: context. Let's see why context is so important in Korean conversations. Context completes the sentence. Let's look at a real conversation. One person asks, 점심 먹었어요? Did you eat lunch? The other replies, 네, 먹었어요. Yes, I did. Notice something interesting. The speaker doesn't repeat, I ate lunch. Instead, they simply say, yes, ate. Why doesn't this sound incomplete? Because the conversation has already supplied the missing information. Both speakers know they're talking about lunch, and they also know who the question is about. Repeating all of that information doesn't make the answer clearer. It simply makes it longer. Did you eat lunch? Yes, I ate lunch. English often repeats information so that each sentence can stand on its own. Korean often does something different. 점심 먹었어요? 네, 먹었어요. Korean allows the conversation itself to complete the sentence. In Korean, information that is already clear from the conversation is often left unsaid because both speakers can already understand it. They expect the listener to connect each sentence with what has already been said. Here's another example. One person asks, 커피 좋아해요? Do you like coffee? The other answers, 네, 좋아해요. Again, the speaker doesn't repeat, "Yes, I like coffee." The topic has already been established, so the shorter answer sounds completely natural. This doesn't mean Korean speakers are simply leaving words out. Rather, they're trusting the conversation to provide information that both people already share. This is one reason Korean conversations often sound shorter than English. Unlike English, Korean often relies more heavily on the surrounding conversation to complete the meaning of a sentence. Speakers rely on the shared context of the conversation. The conversation carries part of the meaning, allowing each sentence to be shorter and more natural. So far, we've looked at one kind of choice Korean speakers make, deciding what information to include in a sentence. But speakers also make another kind of choice. Even after deciding what information to include, they can still decide how to organize it. In the next section, we'll see how Korean speakers sometimes change the word order, not because the grammar changes, but because they want to guide the listener's attention in different ways. The standard pattern and natural variations. Before we look at different word orders, let's review the beginner sentence pattern we learned in Part 1. Subject, time, place, object, verb. When building your own Korean sentences, this is a good pattern to use. It's grammatically correct, very natural, and one of the most common ways to organize information. You'll often see this standard pattern in beginner Korean textbooks because it provides a clear and reliable foundation for building Korean sentences. If you're ever unsure how to build a sentence, start with this pattern. As you continue listening to Korean, however, you'll notice that native speakers don't always keep these pieces in exactly the same order. Does that mean the sentence is wrong? Not at all. In many situations, more than one word order is perfectly natural. The difference is that the speaker is organizing the sentence according to the conversation and what they want the listener to notice. Let's look at a few examples. 저는 오늘 학교에서 친구를 만나요. I'm meeting my friend at school today. Imagine someone asks, 언제 친구를 만나요? When are you meeting your friend? A natural answer could be 오늘 저는 학교에서 친구를 만나요. The sentence still means I'm meeting my friend at school today. The grammar hasn't changed. One natural way to answer this question is to begin with 오늘, because it directly answers when the event happens. When speaking, you'll often hear a little more emphasis on 오늘, helping the listener immediately recognize that the speaker is talking about when. Now, let's change the conversation. This time, someone asks, 어디에서 친구를 만나요? Where are you meeting your friend? A natural answer could be 학교에서 저는 오늘 친구를 만나요. Again, the basic meaning hasn't changed. The speaker is still meeting a friend today. The difference is that the location is now the answer to the listener's question. One natural way to answer this question is to begin with 학교에서, because it directly answers where the meeting takes place. Let's change the conversation one more time. Someone asks, 누가 친구를 만나요? Who is meeting the friend? This time, the standard beginner pattern already works perfectly. The speaker begins with 저는, because who is the information the listener wants? Notice that not every conversation requires a different word order. Sometimes the standard pattern is already the most natural choice. Notice what's happening in all three conversations. The speaker isn't moving words around randomly. Instead, the speaker is choosing an order that best matches the conversation. Sometimes, the standard beginner pattern is exactly what the speaker wants. Other times, the speaker brings a different part of the sentence to the beginning because that's the information they want the listener to notice first. But throughout all three examples, one thing stayed exactly the same. The verb remained at the end of the sentence. So here's a good way to think about it. First, learn the standard sentence pattern. Then, as you hear more Korean, you'll begin recognizing why native speakers sometimes organize the sentence differently. Now, let's see how all of these ideas work together in real conversations. Let's begin with a simple conversation. One person asks, 오늘 뭐 해요? What are you doing today? The other replies, 학교에 가요. Notice that the speaker doesn't say, 저는 오늘 학교에 가요. Why? Because everyone already knows they're talking about today, and everyone knows who is speaking. The only new information is that the speaker is going to school. So it's perfectly natural for the speaker to simply say, 학교에 가요. Now let's change the question. Someone asks, 내일도 학교에 가요? Are you going tomorrow too? This time, the speaker answers, 아니요, 오늘만 학교에 가요. No, I'm only going to school today. Notice that the speaker keeps 오늘 in the sentence and adds 만, meaning only. Since the question asks about tomorrow, the speaker contrasts today with tomorrow by saying, no, I'm only going today. Here, 오늘만 is the new information that answers the listener's question, so it's natural to include it. Now, let's change the conversation again. Someone asks, 누가 학교에 가요? Who is going to school? The answer becomes, 저는 학교에 가요. This time, the speaker keeps 저는 because that's exactly what the listener wants to know. The sentence is still following the same grammar, only the speaker's intention has changed. Here's one final example. Someone asks, 어디에서 친구를 만나요? Where are you meeting your friend? The speaker replies, 학교에서 친구를 만나요. Again, the speaker keeps the information that answers the question and leaves out information the listener already knows. Korean speakers are following the same grammar, but they're also making communication choices based on the conversation and the shared context. Let's review the ideas we've learned today. Now it's your turn. Let's begin with the standard sentence pattern we learned in part 1. Which sentence follows that pattern? 저는 오늘 학교에서 친구를 만나요. 만나요. 저는 친구를 오늘 학교에서. The answer is number 1. It follows the order subject, time, place, object, verb. Whenever you're building your own Korean sentences, this is still the best pattern to start with. Context. 오늘 뭐 해요? What are you doing today? Which answer sounds more natural? 저는 오늘 학교에 가요. 학교에 가요. The answer is 학교에 가요. Now, let's think about the conversation. The question already tells us we're talking about today. And everyone knows who is speaking. So the only new information is going to school. That's why 학교에 가요 sounds more natural. Speaker's intention. 누가 학교에 가요? Who is going to school? Which answer is more appropriate? 학교에 가요. 저는 학교에 가요. The answer is 저는 학교에 가요. This time the question asks who is going to school. Since who is the information the listener wants, the speaker naturally includes 저는. The speaker keeps the information that answers the question. Emphasis. 내일 학교에 가요? Are you going to school tomorrow? Which answer is more appropriate? 오늘 학교에 가요. 학교에 가요. The answer is 오늘 학교에 가요. Here, the conversation is about tomorrow. The speaker replies, 오늘 학교에 가요. The word 오늘 stays because the speaker wants to contrast today with tomorrow. Again, the sentence changes because the speaker's intention changes. Word order. 언제 친구를 만나요? When are you meeting your friend? Which answer better highlights the answer to the question? 저는 오늘 학교에서 친구를 만나요. 오늘 저는 학교에서 친구를 만나요. The answer is 오늘 저는 학교에서 친구를 만나요. This one is a little different. Both sentences are grammatically correct. However, if the speaker wants to answer when, beginning the sentence with 오늘, naturally draws the listener's attention to the time. This is one example of how Korean speakers sometimes adjust the word order to match the conversation. Let's finish by building one more sentence. We're using the standard beginner pattern because it's still the best foundation for building your own Korean sentences. Build the sentence. Arrange the pieces. 친구를 저는 오늘 만나요. 학교에서. Here's a hint. I meet my friend at school today. 저는 오늘 학교에서 친구를 만나요. Once you're comfortable with this pattern, understanding natural variations becomes much easier. Here are key takeaways. Let's review the most important ideas from today's lesson. First, the standard sentence pattern we learned in Part 1 is still your foundation. If you're building your own Korean sentences, that's the pattern you should start with. Second, Korean speakers don't always say every piece of information. If something is already clear from the conversation, they often leave it out because the listener already understands it. Third, speakers make choices about what they want the listener to notice. Sometimes they keep words like 저는 or 오늘 because those ideas are important in that conversation. Other times they leave them out because they're already understood. Because Korean uses particles to mark the role of each word, the order of many sentence elements before the verb can often change without changing the basic meaning. However, the emphasis or focus of the sentence may change. This is one reason Korean word order is often more flexible than English word order. However, one thing stayed exactly the same throughout all of our examples. The verb remained at the end of the sentence. As you continue learning Korean, you'll begin hearing different word orders. But remember that these are natural variations built upon the same sentence framework you learned in Part 1. Across these two lessons, you've learned two equally important ideas. In Part 1, you learned how to build a correct Korean sentence using a clear and reliable sentence pattern. In today's lesson, you learned that speaking Korean isn't just about following grammar rules. Korean speakers use the same grammar while also making communication choices based on the conversation and the shared context. They decide what information needs to be said, what information is already understood, and what they want the listener to pay attention to. Rather than thinking of these as two different sets of rules, think of them as two steps in the same learning process. First, learn the framework. Then, learn how native speakers naturally use that framework in real conversations. A simple way to remember these two lessons is this. Grammar gives us the framework. Communication gives us the flexibility. As you continue learning Korean, you'll become more comfortable moving between those two ways of thinking. As you continue studying Korean, don't worry if you don't immediately know when to leave words out or when to change the word order. Those choices become easier as you listen to more Korean and gain more experience with real conversations. For now, focus on building clear, correct sentences using the standard pattern you learned in Part 1. That strong foundation will make it much easier to understand the natural variations you've learned today. Over time, you'll find yourself thinking not only about whether a sentence is grammatically correct, but also about which natural expression best matches the conversation. If you enjoyed today's lesson, please like this video and subscribe for more Korean lessons. Keep building your Korean, one sentence at a time, and come hang out in Korean again soon.